Hello, welcome back to the Great Rabino. I'm here with Susan Bromberg of UIC Diving, which is not a sport I've covered so much, but I'm super excited to talk to Susan. I want to preface this that I only learned about Susan a couple weeks ago from her husband who are congregants of mine at the synagogue. So there's a sort of like a double purpose here. I get to meet an awesome congregant who's also in the world of sports. Susan, how are you doing today pre-pool?
I'm doing great, doing great. It's a beautiful day. So it's a little chilly. So luckily diving inside today. So that's
yeah. So let's start with that. Like, how does the swim team, for my knowledge of swimming and diving is all indoors, but in the summer, do you guys practice outdoors?
I'm not only the college coach at UIC, but I also run my own club called Windy City Diving. And Windy City Diving has been around for over 25 years. And I run it along with another woman who I actually met in high school at a diving camp. And so in the summer with the club, we're definitely outside a lot. And then in the afternoons, I drive downtown and start coaching inside. So I get both the best
Okay.
of both.
So we were talking a little bit before we started recording. Tell us a little bit how you got into diving and why that became such a passion that you made it a career.
Sure. So when I was a kid, probably about 12 or 13, before diving, I was a swimmer and I took a diving class and really enjoyed it. And it just so happened that my father was also the high school diving coach where I grew up at the high school. And so he sent me out to diving camp at Indiana. And at that time, the coach of Indiana is a famous diving coach, Hobie Billingsley. And the diving camp was very small. It was no more than 30 people. So you got a lot of one-on-one attention from the coaches. And I just fell in love with the sport. And I started diving in high school. And in the summers in St. Louis, there was really no organized diving. There was an elderly man who would come to the pool on the weekends and coach anybody that showed up. And at that time, back in the early 70s, there was some really good divers that were coming out of the St. Louis area that were competing nationally. And then in the summers, my dad would also send me to diving camp. It happened that in, 76, I believe it was. This was the time around the beginning of Title IX. When I started high school, there was no women's swimming or diving high school events. If you wanted to compete, you had to compete with the guys. And my sophomore year in high school was when they had the Missouri First Girls State Championship. And I ended up being the first state champion in diving. So that was pretty cool. Throughout my high school career, I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to defend my title because I broke my hand weeks before the state meet my junior year. And then my senior year, I went back to the meet and dove. And I think I was fourth, but I left there saying that, I'm going to come back and prove to these people that I am a great diver. I ended up going to University of Illinois in Champaign and dove there for 4 years. Yes. Go Illini. And that's where I met my husband. It was, I went to dive in the Big Ten at that time and still today. The Big Ten is one of the more powerful conferences for diving. When I was there, competed against a lot of Olympians. Not to say that I was that great of a diver, but I always give the analogy when I'm talking to my athletes, either if I'm recruiting them or guiding them as far as looking at colleges, it's like, do you want to be the little fish in the big pond or the big fish in the in the little pond? So I chose to be that little fish. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. I met a lot of really cool people. And the diving community is a very small family. When I left college, I didn't coach for a few years. I kind of moved away from the sport for a little bit. And then I came back and, grew my club and everything and started traveling across the country. And again, I make connections with all these people that I dove against when I was in college. So, that's where that family feeling comes in, which is really kind of awesome. So
I love it. I want to talk about something. You talked about the club but and I assume this plays into it, but I really want to talk about recruitment, which, I think people sort of who are involved in sports, it's so well known how they recruit maybe in basketball and football. And in football, you just go down to Texas and you just wait, I guess. But and maybe some of the bigger sports. But how does recruitment in diving? I'm assuming the budgets aren't as large as the football teams. So are you making your way down to like state finals to see kids? And by kids, I mean high school kids. Are there other competitions? Are people just coming and asking for a tryout? How does the recruitment work?
So interesting question. So in the world of swimming and diving, and UIC is basically we're a Division I school. We are a mid-major school. We don't have football, so we don't have to worry about that, which is really nice. But our budgets are small, and the population that we draw from is very specific. So we're not looking at those top level kids. For my club, and we've been very successful over the years, and we are one of the, top nationally ranked clubs in the country. So I get to go to nationals all the time, and I get to see those top divers. I'm not recruiting those kids. I'm recruiting the kids who are up and coming, who are more a developmental type person. And what I look for is first of all, people who are just genuinely nice, good, caring people. Because to me, my team culture is probably one of the most important aspects of the college experience. And what I tell my recruits is that if you come and dive with me, I want to see you progress as a diver, but I'm also here to help you navigate these next 4 years. Because basically mom and dad aren't going to be around. So I'm your biggest advocate. So we need to be able to have a close relationship. And so once they start to get to know me, then they understand that they're going to buy into my program. Some of them, I just had a diver. My husband and I just went to South Africa for the South African National Championships. And she's actually been with me for 5 years. And she considers me like her second mom because she was only able to go home twice a year. So, that was difficult. And during COVID, I felt horrible for her because she could not go home.
Yeah.
Looking for divers, I'm looking for somebody who has a good basic skill base. There are certain clubs that I look to where they come out of because I know their coaches develop good techniques. There are some clubs that I won't look at because I know that it's more work for me on my end. UIC is, as far as a university, it's like our admissions are the same as U of I down in Champaign. So it's not super easy to get into. I want to have somebody who's going to be successful academically as well as athletically. So you're looking at, both of those two characteristics to make sure that, we can get through the 4 years, or if it's 5 years, that they're successful. And nothing's going to be a struggle, or there will be struggles, but it's something that we can work with.
Yeah, and you do have something that Champaign doesn't have, which is this for non-Chicagoans, which is the city, which is probably a draw, just like New York or other things. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming season. So when does the season start, and how is UIC going to look in 2022, 2023?
Interesting question. I don't know if you know.
I can't sign up. My eligibility is out. So
yeah, you're way beyond. But UIC back in January announced that we're changing conferences.
Oh.
This is, I just finished my 14th year, and ever since I've been at UIC, we've been part of the Horizon League. And starting this fall, we are going to be in the Missouri Valley. It's a little bit, as far as prestige, it's, definitely being in the Valley is much more recognizable than being in the Horizon League. For the ball sports, so to speak, there's definitely more opportunities for them being in the Valley. For swimming and diving, it's more of an equal trade. The downside of being in the Valley right now is that the Valley only sponsors women's swimming and diving, their conference championship. And we are a dual gender team. So our men's team is going to have to go into the MAC championship. And I know that there are conversations right now that, because right now when you go to the MAC championship for men's, the majority of the teams are Missouri Valley teams, and there are only 2 MAC teams that are in that conference. So I think in 2 years, the Valley will be hosting both men's and women's swimming and diving championships, which will be awesome. So yeah, moving into the fall, it's going to be different because we started to schedule some of our meets with some of the MAC teams. Probably the closest MAC team to us right now is Illinois State. It's women's only. And then the other one would be Northern Iowa, which is also women's only. So it's, our travel is going to be different this year, but basically school starts I think it's the last week of August this year. And we will start right away with team meetings and all sorts of, getting through our NCAA paperwork. Our official start date is the Tuesday after Labor Day. And that's when we can start training. The 20 hours a week is what the NCAA mandates. And what that looks like for diving, I have practice every morning from 9 until 12. I have basically a dryland room, which is behind the pool, a converted racquetball court that has a trampoline, a dry board into a pit. I have stall bars. I have lots of mats. I have this really cool machine called a somersault simulator that you kind of sit in. It's like a little chair and you can straighten out and they can spin and spot, and I don't have to pull ropes. So I love that piece. And depending on where we are in the season, we'll spend more time in the dryland room than we will on the boards. Usually as we work our way towards the middle to the end of the season, we're on the boards more often than we are in the dryland room. So practices from 9 until 12, Monday through Friday. The divers are lifting at least twice a week with our strength trainer. And then on Saturdays, kind of depending on where we are in the season, there's either an activity, team bonding experience, a meet, or there's practice. So it's definitely 6 days a week. And if you look at our training times, we're probably at 19 and a half hours a week.
Got it. So I want to shift gears from diving. Although, I love swimming. It was actually in many ways like my best sport when I was younger. I was like
awesome.
Never did competitive. My daughter also was like my older one, sort of like took swimming. But here's my big negative, and we don't have to talk about it. I'll just put it out there: is that pool time starts at like 5 a.m. My clock doesn't go up until 6 minimally. So that's like so I'm sure you know about that. So,
yes.
So let's talk about your Jewish journey, which is unique. Tell us a little bit about it.
So being raised in St. Louis, and I'm actually from Clayton, which is just west of St. Louis, there's a large Jewish community in Clayton. And growing up, I did have quite a few friends who were Jewish. My parents, a lot of their friends are Jewish. And a funny little story, when I was about 4 or 5, they started having a Christmas Eve party, and everybody who came was Jewish because they had no place else to go.
Yeah.
So fast forward in college, I meet my husband. We're working at a pizza place together. And
which pizza place?
Garcia's.
Oh, Garcia's. Okay.
Yes, Garcia's on Wright.
Yeah.
I worked one night a week from 9 until 1 in the morning in the middle of the week, and it was really hard to make practice the next morning.
Yes, I'm sure.
As things started getting serious, he goes, he basically told me flat out, he goes, I can't marry somebody who's not Jewish. I'm like, that's really not a problem. And in fact, as we were getting serious, my father came to us and said, you know what, you might want to consider converting. The downside of this story is that as my husband and I are dating, and he was from a pretty conservative family in Skokie, and his mother basically did not talk to me for 2 years. because I wasn't Jewish. And when we finally told them that, we're going to get married and I'm going to convert, she comes to me with arms open and hugs and kisses. And it was a little off-putting. But, it was something that I knew that if I wanted this relationship to continue, this is something that I need to do. And growing up, religion was never huge in our family. I don't know if you know of my parents took us to a place called the Ethical Society, which basically is a humanistic view on religion. And we were actually taught that we can choose whatever religion we want to believe in, but basically think about how you're treating other humans was the foundation of it. So converting to Judaism for me was an educational experience because you go through the conversion classes and everything. And I know that when we were doing it and met with the rabbi, because I came from a very liberal background, that I would ask the rabbi some very thought-provoking questions. And my husband, I think, was floored at times. But it was just kind of like, at that point in time, these were very important issues to me and to my family growing up. So, but, we've raised our children conservative. When my oldest daughter went to Hebrew school, it was just like, do we have to do this 2 times a week? She was in tears. He goes, yes, this is not an option. Like, okay.
Or I would have made it 5 days a week if I would have had the choice. Not true.
Yeah, but, I guess what I have found through my journey is that religion is important. I do believe in a higher being, and it helps explain a lot of things and it helps you get through tough things. So that's pretty much my journey.
I love it. I want to thank you for your time. It's been great. I've learned a lot about diving. Now I'm actually more and more curious. Obviously, like when you think of diving, there's one name that comes to mind, which is Greg Louganis, because everyone knows him and that all that went on with him. So it's good to know that there's other people out there still diving and doing great work and bringing young divers. I've seen a lot here. A lot of people are into swimming, it's been really intriguing here to see sort of on the North Shore of Chicago, but also know that there's a place for them if they want to continue both in swimming and diving.
Yes.
It's not too far.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but there is a girl that actually went to Deerfield High School that's a 2-time Olympian.
Oh, wow.
Who came through our club.
Wow. And
So
her
I
name
started,
is? What's her name?
Christina Lucas.
Christina Lucas. Okay.
She, her parents own the Cubby Bear.
Okay. That's where you should have started.
But she started diving with me when she was about 11 or 12. And then when she was 18, went off to Indiana and dove there. But, to me, that's the fun part about what I do is I'm part of their journey and I get to see them grow up and know that I've had an impact on it. This is something, my husband says, it's just like, he knows that I'm happy when I'm coaching. And, it's like, I keep thinking, so when am I going to stop? And I'm just like, I don't know when I'm ready yet, but
you'll figure it out.
It's something that I love doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.